What is the future for young musicians? If they can't make money from downloads and very little money from streams, what are their options? Touring is more expensive than ever. Social media is saturated. And during pandemic, everyone and their uncle, including established artists, started their own YouTube channel in hopes of making some small kickbacks from ad revenue. It's simply not enough to just be good at your instrument or at songwriting. You have to be good at something more. My guest in this episode, Pierce Marengo, seems to have figured this out. Still in his early teens, he's on his way to becoming a veritable entrepreneur, following in the footsteps of artists like Dr. Dre, Jay-Z, and J-Lo. I talked with Pierce about music, fashion, marketing, and how life experiences can drive both creative and business ideas. And why not combine the two? Would it be completely absurd for artists to think about getting business degrees? I think it might be prerequisite. But that's just me. Let's hear what this young artist of the future has to say about it. Here's Pierce.
Right on. Pierce, how are you?
Hey, I'm all right. How are you?
I'm doing great. So you're out in Palm Desert. I'm in Orange County. Music venues are starting to open up out here. How about there?
Oh, man, I don't really hear much about it, honestly. I feel like nobody's promoting anything at the moment, which is kind of crazy.
Well, we're going to talk a little bit about that. So I wanted to have you on the podcast for a couple of reasons. First of all, I think you represent, in a lot of ways, the musician of the future. And I'm going to explain why I say that. Number one, you grew up in a time where you had access to all the same tools that all the major touring artists use for recording, and then you're able to get your own following on social media. You're able to publish yourself on all the streaming channels, and it's not expensive to do this. You don't need any representation. You just need to spend a little time and figure this kind of stuff out. And someone like you probably just became good at doing all that just by doing it. You know, you didn't need anybody to teach you, and you had everything available to you, which I think is great. And I think it's a huge advantage for kids coming up right now. Secondly, you didn't grow up in a time where you were told that there is a specific way about going about it, how to build your career, how you need to get representation, you need to get a label deal, you need to get this, that, and, a lot of things that made you feel, at least when I was your age, that it was just impossible to do it on your own. Whereas today, completely upside down. And now recently, I've also learned something new about you, is that you've also started your own clothing brand. So now the story's getting even more interesting because now you're becoming an entrepreneur. Now you're branching into areas that, again, successful artists are already doing. You know, they kind of see that, well, you can't make money from downloads alone, but you can do so much other stuff. You can build your brand. You can have a sneaker line. You can have a cosmetics line. You can do whatever. And in a way, you kind of have to. So let's kind of start from the beginning, if you don't mind. Let me just ask you how you started. Your dad's a musician. Mm-hmm. I don't remember him giving you lessons and teaching you, and you just kind of picked it up on your own. So tell me how that came about.
My dad always likes to tell me that he never wanted to force being a musician on me. He wanted to just let it happen naturally so that it would, if it was meant to happen, and it definitely was. Like he would, without direction, just, give me opportunities to be at the piano or to, do stuff like that. But it was never like, let's do lessons. And I think that's the most powerful way to handle that kind of situation. Like one of my favorite artists, Jacob Collier, has a family in a similar aspect where they would give him just access to all of the family music room, and they wouldn't try and force them through any sort of lessons or stuff like that. And that kind of just lets you come in and expand your mind creatively, like in a different way, and then choose if you want to sit down and learn things or if you want to just kind of experiment and stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, essentially what you're saying is you're self-taught. What was your first instrument?
My voice. Probably. I would write little songs when I was a kid, and, just just little lyrics, just kind of melodies, mostly singing stuff. And first physical instrument, let's see. I started producing around when I was 13, 14 on the computer. And that was like, Deadmau5 talks about how he doesn't like, I think he said that he doesn't know theory specifically, but he would write, a lot of the music just based off of what, using a piano roll. That's kind of like been the entire beginning of my music path. But then now that I understand like this dynamic idea of like, oh, we can learn the rules after we play the music, but now we can learn the rules before we play the music, and that's two different mindsets. It's like complete, like the person that uses quantizing, right, for the notes versus somebody who understands why the notes are supposed to be there and why they can't be in other places, and then when to break those rules. And like, I always just, for the first very many years, just fit into like, I will make it completely based off of ear, based off of quantizing. And then now I'm trying to step into the position where I can actually learn how things are supposed to work, and learn like why things work, because that can take you to an entirely different level. But I feel like most people, they put people here first, and then they don't get this natural creativity in the same way. It's harder for people to feel it. It's harder for people to connect with it, I think.
Yeah, I'll totally agree with you on that. I can tell you in my time growing up, when music education was available in school, we had classes and we had bands and all that, but you could definitely tell that there were those few players who just understood their instrument intuitively. And you can tell that they did things outside of class. They experimented, they explored, and they weren't just technically trained. And not that being a technically trained musician is a bad thing. It's a very huge deal to be accomplished in that way, and you can get some very high profile gigs. But you're right. I know of some very proficient musicians who they couldn't write a jingle, they couldn't write a song or a dance beat to save their life. So it's very interesting that you're kind of discovering yourself that there's these two modes of operation, and it seems like you're trying to get a handle on both of them. So what are you doing to educate yourself?
Right now, I'm trying to learn instruments. So I'm learning ukulele, guitar, and I want to learn piano. Like, piano is just like, I feel like I'll get that like that. Like, ukulele and guitar has been not hard, but I don't understand yet how to navigate it within a key. But I can play other songs, then rearrange those chords and change them and then make an own song. But I feel like I don't understand like how to really come up with a melody just off scratch, you know what I mean? And I want to be able to do that.
Sure. So what is your main source for education? You go read books, articles, you go on YouTube. Where do you think you get the most value, or the most you get the quickest answers to what you want to try?
Quickest is just going and finding like tabs online or on YouTube to whatever song, because I have to be passionate about the song. If I don't like the song, or if I'm not passionate about the song, I just can't connect. Like, I've tried there's these apps out there that teach you guitar, and I sat there for like a week just playing and trying to learn from an app, and I could not learn anything. I forgot everything like within another week. But then I learned like 5 songs on ukulele, and I love those songs, and now they're like ingrained in my mind. And then all those chords I can just flip between subconsciously without thinking about it, because it's just the emotion. Like, I have to have an emotional connection with what I'm learning, or else it doesn't come in.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Okay, so tell me what you're doing right now. What kind of music are you producing? How are you producing it? What's your setup at home? Tell me kind of how you operate.
I'm out of my bedroom. I do pretty much everything on the computer, production-wise. My first album that I put out was written entirely on my phone, like just using applications. Well, actually, it was on an iPhone 6S. But I ended up writing, when I was in high school, probably 500 songs or beats. just over the course of that experience, and I only used 14 of them for the album. And then I used like another dozen or so of them for this idea that I wasn't fully conceptualizing. So like my next thing that I'm trying to put out is that album, which is another thing I wrote on my phone. And then like I've also put out some other albums under aliases that I don't go by. Like I don't like announce. I just like put them out and have it be anonymous. And then that's like all stuff I'm practicing to try and get used to using the computer again. Cause it's like, it's a whole nother monster. Like I started producing on computer, like on Logic, and then my computer broke. So and then that's when I started in high school using the phone for like everything. And man, you got to give credit to these apps. They're ridiculous. It's like the fact that they take away the guesswork, right? The app that I use doesn't let you put in a note that isn't on key. It doesn't allow it. And it's just right. Like, I mean, that's bad because then you can't like do jazz, but like, you know, it's like for someone that's just trying to get the hang of making beats, like it's really helpful, I think.
Yeah, well, I totally agree. I can tell you from my own experience, and I'm also a Logic user. Maybe about 10 years ago, I started right exactly where you're at. You know, I had a Mac, brand new Mac computer, and one of the first things I did was sign up for classes through the Apple Store. And for months, I would just go back there like every weekend, just learning to teach me more, you know, about how to use Logic. And over time, I found that Logic became, today I would say it's almost inseparable from my writing process. And what I mean by that is I'll record an idea, could be on a guitar, could be a beat, it'll start somewhere. And then I'll just keep adding to it. And the way that I will do it is I'll put a section in a loop, like could be a beat and a bass line, and I'll just sort of improvise over it. And I'll just record all my takes. And I might have like 20 or 30 takes on just an idea. And then I'll go back and listen to it and then maybe chop it up and find the pieces that I like. Then I can, of course, slice that section in half, and now I can paste it later on in the track. And now that becomes, and then I can decide, okay, is this a chorus? Is this a verse? Is this what, you know? I don't know how I would be able to write without it, quite honestly. If somebody took my laptop
it's
away
insane.
from them. Yeah, right?
Like when you do like video editing and you become an editor, right? It's like you don't see media in the same way anymore. Or if you're in film, you don't see movies the same way anymore. And when you do music, you don't see music that same way anymore. It's like when I write a song on ukulele, out of the chords that I do know, like it's a lot of just picking how I want the emotions to flow up and down and putting lyrics over it and having it be, you know, a story that only has two aspects to it. But when you have a computer, you have infinitely scalable aspects to it. You can take the same sound, duplicate it 7 times and have one be chorused and then one have a phaser and pan it to the left, and then one have distortion and pan it to the right, and then you can switch between those, and it's infinitely scalable. And it's like taking a modular synth but just to another level. And the whole process of using a computer is nuts. It's like when I make a song, like you said, I put down the first piece and then I add a piece and I add a piece and I add a piece. And then I decide how I'm going to sequence the song. What parts are going to go to where? Am I going to do a beat switch? Is it going to be this? And then I start writing lyrics. I write the lyrics. I come in and I record those lyrics 100 times on top of each other. 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way, just until I have enough. And then I go in and I listen to the lyrics. I'm like, oh, I messed up that one. I delete 50 of them. Now I got 50 left. I pick my absolute favorites. Maybe I've got 10 favorites. I pan one to the left, one to the right, one hard all the way, one hard all the way to the right. Then one dead center, 2 here, and then like some chorused about here, some chorused about here, bring all those levels down. And then it's like, it gets to this point where you don't even need to plan it. You can just sit there and record and record and record, and then have all of these takes that you can just play with, and then just delete all of them and then start over and do another idea, or like, you know, like try adding ad libs, or try adding doubles, or try adding harmonies. Or it's just like the fact that you can do that like that, and you don't have to think about it. You don't have to, you know, I couldn't imagine making music without the technology that we have right now. Yeah. It's essential.
Absolutely. Okay. So, but let me ask you this, because this happens to me. I'll be working on a tune, and for me, you know, I'll probably slave over a song for like a couple of days. So if I'm really into it and I really feel like, okay, the idea is very fresh and I got like 70% of it down, I just need to work out the parts. After like 4 or 5 hours and sit in front of a computer, I'd go grab another coffee, or maybe I'll go out for a run or something. And all of a sudden, there it is. That's that chord. That's the thing that I was missing. I hear it in my head. And now I got to run back to my computer and lay it down. Do you still have that happen to you?
The weirdest thing that I've learned about my process is that I'm like polar opposite to what you just said. If I step away, the magic is gone. It's like that moment where I'm composing or creating, it's like all or nothing. And it's like a mindset that takes me a while to, like, it's not hard to jump into it. Like I never get writer's block, but what I get is like these frequencies that I tap into the frequency, and I'm like, okay, I can work for 7 hours on this. And then I stop. And then the only time I touch that piece is to mix it and to get it ready for distribution. I don't add any creation, because if I do, it will change the whole song. But sometimes I want to do that, but sometimes I don't. So like, I don't usually walk away. I usually like just sit there and try and solve like, what is it? What am I missing? And I'll sit there and I'll just sit there for an hour, just like, what is it? And then I'll find it. Whereas if I take a break, I'll come back and then it will go from one genre to the next genre. Like it won't even sound remotely the same. Sometimes that's good, sometimes that's bad, but it's kind of interesting. I don't know. I think it's different for everybody, honestly.
Yeah, that is interesting. Okay, cool. Okay, let's just say you've got your finished piece. Now what are you going to do? How are you going to promote yourself? How do you get it out there?
Man, this is the most interesting part of music nowadays. It's like there are so many elements of awareness that are out there now. If you just completely forget about what social media is as a whole, just delete that idea from your mind, the same principles apply. You need attention on you. You need, and how are you going to get that attention? Are you going to do it through building your community, or are you going to do it from turning people against you and creating controversy and then profiting off that controversy? Those are like the two main ways that people do it. I never liked social media. And I know this is probably something you're like, wait a second, this guy's the kid here. Why is he like, I never liked it. It's always been the most toxic, scary place I've ever been. I can't believe that people are letting their children use this. Like have you seen Bo Burnham's new special?
I have. I just saw it 2 nights ago. Yeah,
exactly. Do you know that it is? Do you know that moment where he's laying down and he says, he's talking about how he can't believe that we're giving kids the ability to compare themselves, and it's basically hyper vigilance of like who you are and trying to be something. Whereas like back in the day when it was just film, like you take a photo and you don't think about it. Nowadays, you take a photo, it's like, I got to take 17 photos, all these selfies, you go through it's just lots and lots of photos. People are obsessing over being falsely perfect, right? Then when people come in to promote their music, they feel like they have to be like everybody else's way of doing it. They have to come in and shock value, diss tracks, like things like this, where before it used to be like you go to venues, you perform, you get a following, and then the message is shared. There's beautiful instances of social media where it's the way that you can discover who you want to be or how you want to convey yourself. I love the fact that I can post something and that all these people in the world can see it, I think that's exciting. It's a cool idea. The fact that, like you were saying, you don't need a label to distribute it in the same way. MTV has become TikTok. TikTok is now the way that music plays enough times for our heads to get accustomed to it so that we want it on the radio. And that's how people get gigs now, is just by repetition. And the same way that a label would promote music on the radio to get repetition so that you like the song, right? That has become the way that people get famous. And it's not something I personally like. I personally want to go perform it. I want people to see it. I want to fail until it's successful. But a lot of people want to just put it out there and just have it be picked up. And the problem with that is you put out a song and you expect it to go viral. You expect it to be like the next big thing, no matter what it is. And even if it's the most amazing song in the world, if you don't have the audience, if you don't have enough reach, it is not going to get anywhere. Social media is creating the false belief that anybody can be famous off of this, when it really is a lot to do with luck and strategy. And then those people that get famous, and then what do? Now they have all this fame and they don't know what to do with it because they didn't build it slowly enough. You know what I mean? Like, they don't understand how much they have, and then people make mistakes.
Not only that, but they have set themselves up to basically, I mean, if they can't top their last viral thing, it's over. Bye-bye.
Yeah.
So that's another dangerous thing. What you're saying is right, but I don't want anyone listening to this, and particularly, people in your age group, to be discouraged by what you just described. That is definitely going on, but here's what I've also noticed, and I've discussed with other musicians. Everybody agrees social media also, at least the popular channels, they've already kind of plateaued. In the last couple of years, what has happened is there have been 100 new social media apps have entered the market. Now, after a few years, what we're going to see is we're going to start to see social media apps that are much more specific to a particular type of interest or a group. It could be about music, could be about your political beliefs, could be about your religious beliefs, could be about your cat. But it's starting to happen already. And the unique thing is that some of these platforms don't have the same business model. They're not based on ads. They're not making their money from ads. They're encouraging people to, if you like something, support it. Give some money to it. Like for artists, donate some money to our artists. Just give them $5. In fact, I think I know of one app that you can't join unless you invite like 100 of your friends to follow an artist. That's like a prerequisite for even using the app, right? It's a great idea, and hopefully it catches on. But we'll see. Secondly, nothing will ever replace the experience of seeing a live artist, and this is something, especially in this last year after pandemic, people are starting to realize, okay, yeah, this was fun sitting on the couch and having access to everything and a bag of chips, and I want to get the hell out of the house. I want to hear live music. I want to hear it at 80 decibels again. I want to dance. I want people spilling their beers on me. That's fine. That's part of the experience.
It's a human experience that you just can't get over the computer.
That's right. Yeah, it will never be replaced. It doesn't matter how good VR technology ever becomes. You'll never be able to replace that. And that will always be there for musicians. So anybody who thinks that that avenue is not available or that doesn't work anymore, you're wrong. It will always work.
You're 100% right. Like, I don't want to come off like that social media is the problem, because it's not the problem. The problem is that they're trying to take your attention. The social media apps are trying to harvest your attention, like you said, for ads. That's kind of what makes it a problem. It's also a problem how we use it. But the idea of social media is not the problem, because the idea of being hyper connected is just the next thing. I mean, you can't stop the evolution of technology, right? It's like, I just want to remind people that, how easily we can be coerced into swiping and just consuming media and not living going outside, not living your life, and not, I mean, it's hard to do in these times, but like, it's hard for me to post because I know how much of a stigma social media is. And I know, like, I would much rather just put the music out and then let people talk about it, and like, let that be my advertisement. That's kind of what I do with clothing too. It's hard to make posts. Like, I sit there with a post and I'm like, do I really want to do this right now? Because it's like, I want to benefit people. So I do post, but so many people do it just for their own benefit, for money or attention. And it's like, to bring intention into how you post, that's everything. It's like, I want to share the stuff that I'm doing for positive reasons. And that's the only reason that I do it. But then I also stay away from certain apps because I can't bring my attention to them, you know?
Okay, well, interesting point. But I'll give you a little tip. Everything you're doing is right, but think about this. Right now, you might get somebody who's interested in your music, likes it, follows you, but they're in Wisconsin or they're in, some other country. You still have an opportunity to do exactly what you would do at a live event. At a live event, you're able to see the audience, look them in the eye. You can, for 3 or 4 seconds, make them feel like you're playing that show just for them. You can still do that over social media. You can do it just by chatting with them, connecting with them, just saying thanks.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So you know what I'm getting at. It's just making that personal connection. So now they feel like this is a reason for me to come on social media now.
I don't believe in not answering like a message. Like, if somebody takes the time to message you, you should definitely message them back. Like, there's no reason. I mean, unless you're getting thousands a day, then yeah, you have to, but still taking the time, an hour a day, to message people back. I mean, I've had instances where I've messaged somebody that I admire that you don't expect them to respond, but they do. And it just ingrains that admiration for them even more.
Absolutely.
So that's what people forget about in social media. Yeah.
Yeah. It's what people forget that social media can do, but it's also easy to forget that that's what music is about.
Mm-hmm.
All art, really, but definitely music. Music, I think there's no quicker way to convey an idea, an emotion than through a song. To get people to feel exactly what you're feeling or experience exactly what you were thinking when you wrote that tune, there's no better vehicle for it. So right on. Okay.
So Lemon is my brand, and I'll tell you what it means. But the bullet points are: everybody wants to be famous, everybody wants to have money, and everybody wants to have attention. And I don't want that. I want people, when they wear the clothing that I make, to feel as if they're connected with the idea behind it and also the people that are wearing it. I'm not focusing on it for money. Any money will be going back into it. Any money will be going to my music so that I can tell more stories. The idea of the brand is to build a community. And I'll tell you about what the message is, not to be defined by what holds you back.
Okay. So how are you going to get that message out to people? Do you think your clothing reflects it, or how do they hear that message?
That's kind of the most interesting thing that I'm discovering right now. It's like, I think it's so much more gratifying and personal when you get that message via something like this, or something like, I host an event where I have, like, let's say I'm hosting a venue for music. Somebody I admire is Tyler, the Creator, and he hosts Camp Flog Gnaw. I'd like to do something like that to bring my friends up and put them on my shoulders and say, hey, look, these are the people that I want you to know about. To use a brand to share that, and then also share the message in person to all those people, instead of putting it in the description or the about me. I want to just like speak it to them and explain it to them. Like, this is what I'm trying to do with my brand, and have it be personal, like you're saying. Or if somebody DMs me, like, what is your brand? I'll respond to them rather than putting it in a product description, if that makes sense.
Yeah. But Do you think your clothing reflects that in some way?
Yeah. Like I think the clothing, like my music, is talking about something without saying it too blatantly. Like it's something you can look into. My brand is called Lemon, which is, if you know a car, right? An old car or a new car that has a lot of issues, right? And it's called a lemon. It's a metaphor for the youth because we're so young, but we have all these mental, physical tribulations that we're dealing with. The tagline is not defined by flaw because I like to think that anybody is not defined by the mental or physical setbacks that they have. I like to reflect that in the clothing because I feel like the flaws in our lives, they enrich us, they don't hold us down. The way that you see yourself, the things that you don't like about yourself, like for instance, acne, right? Everybody's gone through that phase and everybody is so insecure about it. And I was. And then I realized, like that it doesn't change who I am and it doesn't change how people view me. And if it does, then that's not how I want people. That's not the kind of people I want to be in my life. If they think that I'm lesser because of my act, like that's ridiculous. And so in a way, I call that a blemish. I just released the dog tags and it has lemon, not defined by flaw. And on the dog tags are blemishes, scratches. I call them scars. They're not perfect in any way. And it's like supposed to be a reminder, not defined by flaw. It's supposed to be a reminder that despite these things that we have in our lives, that we're not defined by those flaws. When I first conceptualized the brand, I was struggling with severe OCD, and I used the brand as a way to combat it and also to share my story of how I combated it. And you'd think somebody who's very OCD would not be okay with something having a scratch or a flaw, or for instance, when I made shirts, I like to make sure that they're not perfect, that they have something wrong with them in some way. That I designed the logo to be a O with a slash right through it, because it's supposed to remind you that even though something's imperfect or slightly off balance, or it can connect you with that idea and connect you with the community of people that are willing to overlook those flaws and to feel independent of them.
Wow, that's powerful stuff, honestly. So tell me where you're at in the development of that right now.
I've got a collection coming that is inspired a lot by things of my youth. I do everything by hand as much as I can. I don't sew the shirts by hand, but I do the designs by hand, and I like to feel, even if it's not 100% by hand, that it's like I at least did something. You know what I mean? Like the packaging, I hand draw everyone, and I like it to be like not defined by flaw. Like I like to feel that when somebody is gonna get this in the mail and they paid money for this, that it's not just me saying, hey, thanks for your money, but it's me saying, I'm going to set aside time, hours of my day to hand draw hundreds of these, because it's like signing posters, right? You feel connected with the designer, you feel connected with the artist. And that's like, people underestimate how powerful that is, especially if you're a young kid and you got your favorite artist and he takes the time to sign it and send it to you. That's powerful stuff. That's something you will never forget. And it's like, even if somebody grabs this and they have one small moment where they open it up and they take out the tags and they're like, this is really unique and this is really neat. And then they put them on, or they put them in their car on the mirror or whatever they do. And they throw out the packaging and they only saw it for 1 second. That 1 second, at least they thought, wow, took the time.
Yeah, took the time. And that was for me. That's the best part about it, right?
Yeah. And it's none of them are like the others. They're all unique because it's by hand. It's different, I think that's powerful. People get so fixated on clothes. They're like, oh, it has to be perfect. They'll get a nice pair of sneakers and they'll polish them every night, or they won't even wear them for 20 years. And, I admire the people that have collections. There's nothing wrong with having a collection, but I'm all about wearing the clothes. I want the clothes to get dirty. I want my shoes to be dirty. It's a sign of where I've gone. It's a sign of who I am. I got a pair of shoes that I designed. Hold on, let me get them. When I designed these, I kind of wanted it to be something imperfect. So I did different lace colors, the imperfectness of using saran wrap as a lace. Like I find that, crazy cool. And then like the way that the 3-dimensional paint just comes in the front, the way that the dye takes that bleached color and turns it into like this grungy look. And then you can see like the time that I went to the beach, and you can see all the sand in the nooks and crannies of each design. And I just think that's so unique because it reminds you of where you've been, and like, it takes you on a journey, and you can tell people about it, and it grounds you.
So let me kind of summarize what I'm hearing. You're basically saying every piece of clothing for you is a work of art.
Absolutely.
Far out. All right, Pierce, we're going to have to wrap this up, which I'm kind of sorry to do because I really enjoyed talking with you. But I want to ask you one quick question before we turn off here. If you had $100,000, if somebody just gave you $100,000 today and said, you have to invest all of this into your art, what would you do with it?
Wow. That is a question, man. And so just to be clear, no investing in any,
it's a gift.
100%. Like can't put it in stock, can't buy a vending machine.
Has 100% okay. Go into 100%. Your art in one way or another, promoting your art or creating something new, whatever it is. What would that be?
Honestly, to be able to lift other people up, that would be incredible. And if I can't donate it, I can't multiply it in some way using business, I would say a way to bring everybody together would be to host a festival. That way the people that are supporting my music or supporting my brand can both come. And also I can support other musicians and other people that I admire as well. I think that would be the best way to do it, honestly.
All right. That's a fantastic answer, man. Let's close on that. Pierce, why don't you give your social media sites and websites, and where can they find out about everything you're doing?
So I'm Pierce Marengo, PIERCEMARENGO. Just Google it. I mean, like I have a weird name, so it pops up. But in order to see Lemon, you're going to want to go to Not Defined by Flaw on Instagram, YouTube, and the website as well. NotDefinedByFlaw.com, at Not Defined by Flaw on Instagram. And yeah, I think that should get everything, I think.
All right, far out. Pierce, you have a fantastic afternoon. Great summer. Get out and see some shows. Create some new music. Right on, man.
Thank you for having me, man. I really appreciate this interview. Thanks for inviting me.
Absolutely. It was a lot of fun. All right, man. You take care.
You too.